So, welcome to the show. I am always so grateful that you tune in to a show called Doing It Right. That kind of says what it's about, right? And it's interesting, audience, when I started this show now 8 years ago, I simply had the idea that there are so many people out in our world who aren't living the way they should, or let's say it differently. There's a lot of people who are, and I wanted to show that was called Doing It Right and highlight those people. And today is no exception. So stay tuned.
Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
Well, before I start with my wonderful guest, I just have to show you this little red door because Betty Ryder Boutique at Preston Center always gives me wonderful jewelry and outfits to wear once in a while, and today is no exception. So thank you, Betty Ryder. You will notice her shop at Preston Center because this is exactly what it looks like, a big red door. Go in, tell Betty Ryder Valerie sent you. I'll appreciate that, and she will too. Okay, Kim Muench.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Valerie, I'm excited to be here.
And you're not nervous at all because you were doing your own podcast, weren't you?
I did, yeah. I did 10 episodes of a podcast a couple of years ago. So, yeah, I'm very comfortable and very excited about the topic we're going to talk about today. So,
This is now a very serious topic. In fact, I want to hold up your book, Kim, right now, that is called Becoming Me While Raising You. Let's just start the show by talking about what's this about, Kim?
well, to me, becoming me while raising you is like the definition of parenting. And because I have 5 adult children at this point, and I literally grew up through raising them, I think. So, and I think a lot of parents would say that, right? I become more of myself through parenting, through marriage, through the different roles that we have in our lives. So that book is a look back at 6 different beliefs that I took on about myself during childhood that were not effective, and they were limiting. And those beliefs about myself came into my adult relationships, into my marriage, and into my parenting of my children. And they weren't serving me, and they weren't serving my family. So it is a look at beliefs I had, working on shifting those beliefs to something that were more productive and better serving to myself and my family. Also, along the way, it is the story of walking through my eldest son's addiction to alcohol in his early 20s. So
Mm.
it's a book about how in the process of taking him into, helping him get to long-term sobriety, how I analyzed and looked at myself and decided to live life differently through having that experience with my son.
That's a lot, Kim. Look how beautiful you are. I want to talk about all of that. When we were discussing all of this ahead of time,
hmm
you talked about when you first started thinking about what parenting was, or did you? And let me set this up a little bit of context. When I had my first child, his name is Brandon, I have 3, and I was an only child, raised by a grandmother.
Hmm.
So I had no context. I was a latchkey kid. I'm not saying feel sorry for me at all. It was my journey, but I had no context. And so I remember very clearly, this will make you laugh, when Brandon came home from the hospital in my arms, he got the hiccups, and I just panicked. And I thought to myself, I have no clue. I don't know what to do. Talk about parenting. They don't teach you how to do that. And so I called my mother-in-law and I told her, and she laughed. Actually, she said, I'll be right over. How funny is that? Well, by the time she got there, the hiccups were gone. But how prepared do you think today people are to be parents?
Is anyone ever really prepared? I mean, I'm not sure that one can be totally prepared. I loved babysitting when I was a teenager, and I babysat for a lot of babies.
Mm.
Even when I was pregnant with my son at the age of 18, I nannied for the summer before that for a brand new baby, which was super helpful, but it was like having a brand new baby. Until then, I had my own brand new baby. But I don't know. So I had some preparation. I also had a mom that was a wonderful support system for me, but not everybody has that,
Right.
you know, and you can read books and you can be very educated on these things, but it is a hands-on experience, right? Like,
It's like, what?
and you know, obviously I don't think I was the same mother with my oldest son that I was with my daughter, who was the fifth in line. You know, you're a different parent to each one of them.
Oh.
So
I imagine by the fifth it was, oh, well, what do you want? Okay, we'll go get it.
no, the fifth one was like, you'll live in the car seat, unfortunately, because you have three brothers in baseball and we have to go to the practice.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even imagine. Kim, at one point, I had a neighbor who had 9. And I'll never forget, I was cooking this big pot, you know, the big old-fashioned pots that had, they were blue and
Yeah.
they had white speckles.
Yeah.
And
Like a Dutch oven or something like that?
Yes, yeah, it was huge. And I just had my little family, and I was making stew. And I was so proud that I was making this big pot of stew. She came, Trudy is her name. She came over and I said, look, Trudy, look what I'm doing. And she said, I cook him that every night. So when you said 5 children, I thought, oh, I thought I was doing good when I had my first one. Your work focuses on what you call emerging adult years. So, Kim, how would you define this stage of development for our audience? What do you mean by that?
Yes.
What makes it so critical for both young people and adults?
Yes. So Jeffrey Jensen Arnett is a psychologist who coined the phrase emerging adulthood in 2000. And it essentially is post high school, so about age 18, until physical, financial independence. So, yes. So, and these days, that is taking young people longer to get to. You know,
Why, Kim?
I think there's a number of reasons. I think it's taking them longer to either choose to go to school or get through school. When I was in my 20s, obviously I'm a little bit of an anomaly because I had my first son at 18, but I was also then married and starting to have the rest of my children by the age of 23. Young people today, if they're getting married, aren't getting married until their later 20s because school is taking longer, because finding the right job is taking longer, because it's costing more for them to be able to live independently. So they're staying at home longer to save money. And the parents that I work with, unfortunately, have found themselves in a position of having a son or a daughter who is not launching, who is not wanting to move forward, who's either started college and then came home because that didn't work, or they took a gap year that's turned into 5 years of gap year. They're afraid to grow up, quite frankly, or they don't want to.
Well, how does that affect discipline?
It makes it very interesting because quickly we were taught to parent that there was a consequence. Actions had consequences, right? And when you have a teenager, you might take their phone away or don't let them use the car or, you know, that kind of thing. Very quickly, parents understand when they have a, say, 22-year-old son or daughter living at their home and they are unwilling to clean up the kitchen after themselves, or they're unwilling to pay rent, and they were supposed to pay rent. They're unwilling to do their laundry. They're unwilling to, I don't know, pitch in around the house. The parents become like frustrated, clearly, because they have this adult child living at home who won't participate. And I want to go back to your question just to say, too, one of the factors I think is COVID. Really have found that there are a lot of parents whose sons and daughters did beautifully in high school, were doing well, were on track, they're brilliant. But because of COVID and lockdowns, these now 20 somethings are really struggling with their mental health,
Mm.
with trusting the world. So COVID has something to do with it. Social media and the complete information that's coming at them. They don't, I don't think they trust that the world is going to be a safe place for them, or why should I try? They also have seen how their parents have worked really, really hard, and they don't want the same lifestyle.
Those are all very true things that
Yes.
I hear.
Yeah.
Yes, both from young adults and from parents.
Well, and the problem is that parents did not sign up unless they have, a physically disabled or,
Right.
some issue that, this child is never going to grow up and be able to become independent on their own. They didn't sign up to be financially responsible for their 22, 28, 30 something. And so they're frustrated and they're stuck because their son or daughter is stuck.
So talk to me about that for a minute. Let's say that there's someone listening who or watching that has a young adult into, let's say, late 20s.
Mhm.
And especially what if they have siblings and some of the siblings have flown the coop?
Yep, many situations like that.
Yes.
They've got 3 other siblings and
Yes.
they've moved on, they're thriving, they're married, they're doing their thing. So it can be I hear that often.
You do.
So I break down, we talk through and the parents know that they're part of the problem, and they have the courage to then look at themselves and what part they're playing in this unhealthy dynamic that's going on in their house.
Hopefully.
Yes. Well, they won't be my clients if they
Well, there you go. They're not your clients.
They won't come to me. But that's why I say parents really need to have courage to be able to look within themselves and into the dynamic of what's going on at home and take ownership in what the only thing they do control, and that's how they're showing up, what they're willing to provide at this point, and how they respond to their young person, their son or their daughter. Like, these are the things they control. They have to stop trying to attack the problem by changing the behavior of their son or daughter, because that doesn't work. So,
Well, and add to that, sometimes I think from experience, I've heard people who say, my friend can't let the children go. It's all they have, especially a mother. It's all she has, her children. She's so entangled with.
yeah.
And think about it.
Sure.
Parents, I will just say from experience again, the hovering parent that wants to be involved in all the activities and goes to everything and puts the kids in everything and so forth. And then all of a sudden they're supposed to leave me. Oh my goodness. So what do you do when parents feel overwhelmed and they don't have a roadmap of what to do? You're coaching them.
Yeah. So we start by step 1 is investigation. Looking at what are the core issues, what's really going on here. They'll tell me the circumstances, and just by listening and kind of asking questions, I will figure out, like, okay, you're asking your son or daughter to get a job, but they literally haven't left their bedroom in 3 years. Like, the mental health has to be addressed before you can ask this person to get a job.
And how do you know it's mental health? How do you know it's not just fear or
Well, I
or
think that's
introversion?
it's
or
something that needs to be worked on, right? If you haven't left the house in the last couple of years and you're not showering and you're not participating in life, that is something that needs to be worked on. And that's not to say that this person will want to work on that. I'm just saying, like, that we have to identify
Have
what
to
the
do
core
it.
issues are. Identify, looking at their history, this 20-something's history, and where they are today. Like, what are they really capable of? So working through that. And then again, the parents looking at, what am I doing or providing that's continuing to create this environment and this atmosphere. Every parent I work with says, I will not throw my son or daughter out. So I'm currently writing a book called Lost in Place, because I think that's what's going on. I think instead of failing to launch, because I think that sounds way too final and way too negative, I'm calling it Lost in Place. So lost in place. So, because if you're lost, you can be found. That's my thing. And so that is what I help parents identify the issues, create a plan, Depending on how long they've been in the situation, it takes a while. Like, this isn't going to get solved overnight.
Sure.
So patience is required and consistency. Parents being very clear on where they stand with things, and their words and their actions have to be in alignment.
What if it's a solo parent?
Same thing. It can be, I mean, it can be, sometimes that can be an advantage because you're not trying to marry two people's ideas of what should take place. But also there's an advantage if there are two parents in the home as well, because they can work together. And often it's helping them find that same page, because inevitably if there's two parents, one of them typically is the more hard-nosed, black and white, this is what has to be done. And the other one, usually mom, but sometimes dad, is more empathetic and, too soft, quite frankly. So I help them like step back when they need to and step in when they need to.
So that's great, Kim. What about obedience being one of your top takeaways you shared was obedience isn't the goal, influence is.
Right. So for generations, we've had what's called the dominant parenting paradigm. I'm the parent, you're the child, you will listen. This is not working. This is not working with our young people. And the more we try and stick to this, the more disconnected the relationships become.
And how does it show up at work?
How does
They
it show
get
up
a
at work?
job. Yeah. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Absolutely. And then they go into the workforce. And are you seeing or are you hearing from the employers?
I have heard in the news, like I
Yeah,
haven't personally heard from employers, but I understand that it's a difficult thing for employers today because there isn't as much that young people, some young people, I don't want to classify all here, right?
No, I know.
Some young people have issues with showing up on time, with following directions, with being accountable. I think if there's one thing I think I'm Gen X, and one of the things that we have not done well is teach accountability.
Interesting.
So while this dominant parenting paradigm was what took place for many generations, and kids are pushing back on that, they don't want this type of thing. So I talk about parenting with coming up, especially when they're in their 20s. How can I come up alongside of you when there's a problem? Instead of telling them how to solve the problem or saying this is how it's going to be, it's inviting them to find a solution to the problem together. How can we work on this together?
Of maybe something that's worked.
Let me think. So there's many. So I'm trying to think of a good one that's pretty common. You've got an emerging adult living at home and they don't want to clean up the dishes after themselves. Okay. They tend to make something to eat in the middle of the night and the parent's trying to sleep because they got to get up for work in the morning. They cleaned up the kitchen, the parent cleaned up the kitchen after dinner, and then they wake up in the morning ready to go to work and the kitchen's a mess again. Okay. So this causes extreme frustration in parents, which is understandable. And they have told their emerging adults several times, you need to clean this up. You need to clean up your mess. And this just isn't getting them anywhere. So I will say you need to sit down with them and define the problem. Don't say we have a problem, because we have a problem they're going to say, I don't have a problem. This is your problem. So I'm very specific in the language. There's a problem. And the problem is I go to bed at night and the kitchen's clean. And I wake up in the morning and the kitchen is dirty. And I don't make food in the middle of the night. I cannot continue to clean up the kitchen after a mess that I haven't made.
Nice.
How can we work together to solve this problem? Now, I'm under no delusion that a 20-something is going to say,
good.
oh my gosh, Mom, here's how we solve this problem. This is a process coming up alongside of them and inviting them into finding a solution together takes time for them to understand because they've always been told what to do.
Yes.
And they don't actually they don't actually believe that you actually want their input and their buy-in. That you actually would value the input. So there is a framework that we work through, right? Defining the problem. They'll say, I don't know, but like how can we solve this together? I don't know. That's typically the answer. Sometimes they don't even respond to you. Well, I'd like you to think about it. I'm going to think about it too. And let's revisit this discussion tomorrow. Then it's on the parent to go back the next day, readdress it. Hey, remember that problem we talked about? Have you had time to think about it? No, typically is the answer. The first several times, this typically is what happens, right? So then the parent, I tell them you have to be prepared. So come back and say, well, I have thought about it, and here's what I propose. And likely it's going to be less appealing than what this son or daughter wants. Here's what I propose. You're no longer allowed to be in the kitchen in the middle of the night. Like, period, end of story, you're not. And this is what happens with, and so the kid inevitably will either not, chances are he or she is not going to be like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. The idea is to get them to come back and say, well, I hate that idea, but what about this? And that to engage them into solving the problem together.
Exactly. What an interesting word. Have a conversation, right? And
Yeah.
listen, both
Yeah.
of you.
Yeah.
Kim, you're doing great work, I can tell.
Oh.
The other thing that we talked about is that boundaries are actually love. I think a lot of parents feel like, well, I don't want to, again, the hovering parent or the one that wants to be the buddy. It just doesn't work. They think that's love, right?
Yeah. And we pretty much know that being a permissive parent is not what kids need of any age, right?
No.
They do need structure, and I believe that you can be firm yet kind. I think that's what's required.
What's been that's all wonderful advice.
Thank you.
And I know there's more in this book, so go get this book. I'm going to hold it up again. Becoming Me. What I like so much about it, Kim, is it's talking about you. You're the parent. Becoming me while raising you, a mother's journey to herself. And I think on that note, we've talked about it, which is it's often so easy for a parent to lose themselves because especially a parent of 5, I admire you greatly. You had a lot going on, and yet you didn't lose yourself.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I loved that you told me on the call, you said, the goal is to raise someone who can struggle and adapt and find their way. You don't want it, right? Or otherwise.
Right. When parents take away all of the obstacles and try and fix things constantly and make things better all the time, it takes away, when you do something for someone they can and should do for themselves, you take away their purpose.
Wow.
Right? Some of these young people are at home in their rooms, in their beds. Yes, they're afraid. Yes, they have mental health issues, but they also don't have a lot of purpose. So sometimes I'm working with parents, and the first order of business is to give them purpose to take a shower once a week. I hate to say it, but
take the garbage.
So it's incrementally parents taking steps back, small steps back, which is going to be hard for the parent to do because they've enabled the situation. So it's uncomfortable for the parents because they're having to watch and wait for, if I step back, will they step in? What if they don't? What if they don't? And so their anxiety is driven. But to your point, we are not teaching our children to become independent, functioning, even when there's obstacles, to be resilient in the face of things. And I think we really need to think about how that's going to affect the world as we move along.
Yes. And the workplace, again, back to that from what I'm hearing so much. So your 5 children, you undoubtedly had a lot of different personalities. What was the biggest? Share with us any challenge that you've had within your own 5 children.
Oh my gosh. Well, With what part of what brought me to coaching is my oldest son, I think I said earlier, became addicted to alcohol as a result of his mental health struggles. So he is diagnosed with major depressive disorder and OCD. And
Very.
and I mean, he, as a part of learning how to parent that and walk through addiction with him and support him and not enable him, um, that was one of my greatest parenting challenges. Um, all of them are very unique individuals. So others have had anxiety and other challenges too. I think what's important to note is no matter what your son or daughter is going through, your mental health, you, the parent, your mental health is super important. So I always tell my parents that I work with, you're the emotional barometer in your family. When you are doing okay, when you're, that ripples out to everybody. That's not to say that all of your kids are going to be fine if you're fine, but they're going to be better off if you're in an emotionally regulated, calm, not much anxiety state. So you need to work on you.
Isn't that the truth? And really, when you get down to it, Kim, that's the one thing, maybe only thing in a lot of ways that we can take care of is ourselves.
Yes.
Let's get to sticking to the boundaries. What's the secret to consistent follow through?
Well,
These are things I've seen too, so that's just where these questions are coming from.
So I talk about the 4 C's, and that is clarity, calm, confident, and consistent. So these are the things that parents need to work on. Clarity, meaning talking through and really being reconnected to your intuition when it comes to your parenting. Even though I am out there coaching and helping other people, I also really want a strong message that, parents need to honor their gut instinct, not the anxious chatter in their head, but their gut, belly, heart instinct, because nobody knows your kid like you do. And parents are always looking for the answer outside of them. Some expert, somebody else, there's so many books out there. There's so much information coming at parents and they just don't know what to do. And so they stop doing anything. And they
get somebody else to do it.
So my goal in part is to, take them through, investigate. Let's take this apart. Let's look at what's really going on here, identify the real problems, come up with a plan. But it's going to honor their intuition. I'm asking questions as a coach to help bring them to clarity. So they are then, with clarity, can be confident and not be coming from control, but from confidence. Our kids need us to be confident leaders in their lives, especially if they're in their 20s and they're lost.
Can you do this long distance? Like is your practice just with in-person parents? Or
no, I do. Everything I do
Zoom?
is on Zoom. Everything. I don't meet with parents. So I have a global clientele.
Business.
Yeah, I have a global business. So, and through the magic of TikTok and Instagram, I have been able to reach and touch and, have clients all over the world.
Well, let's go there for a minute. So you're an entrepreneur also, right?
Sure. Yes, I am.
Did anybody teach you how to do that?
Not at all. And the challenge is I didn't realize how much I'd be marketing myself constantly. So I do TikTok videos almost every day.
Now, hold on a minute. I've got to ask about that TikTok. I'm trying to visualize this serious topic.
Yeah.
And what I haven't been on TikTok that much.
Okay.
But I see
it's not all just dance moves.
I know, but that's what kids, when I see them in the phones, that's what they're watching. So what do you do on TikTok?
I teach parents. So I a couple of times a month, I will get letters from parents and they have questions. So I will use a video to read the parent question and respond to that online, of course, getting their permission first. I will do short teachings on things like clarity, on things like what's the core issue. So it's all very serious, and my
Mhm.
audience expects me to be serious. A couple of times I tried to bring not humor, but maybe my own personal life into it, and they seem to really they want the information from me. They want the education. They don't really care what I'm doing in my off time, right? Like they don't really want to see me dancing.
Right. No. Well, you're doing such great work, Kim. And on the banner, it says where to find you. And I'm going to say it verbally so that those who don't have YouTube and are listening, her site is www, of course, reallifeparentguide.com.
Correct. Yes.
I said that right.
Mm-hmm.
All together, reallifeparentguide.com. Kim, this has been more than wonderful because I've learned a lot. I have friends and family that I hope will watch and learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just face it, we are living in a world where all of us need support. All of us need to take care of our own well-being, just what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing this in my executive coaching part of what I do. I'm seeing it in workshops. People will come up offside. I may be talking about one of my niche, executive presence, and they'll take it to something they want to talk about. It's just so interesting. It's almost like people need a trusted source, and it isn't always or can be financially
Mm-hmm.
a psychologist or a consultant or whatever. So the information you shared today is more than powerful, and I want to thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me,
Thank you for
Valerie.
being on the show.
Yeah.
And stay tuned. I always have what's called a Valerieism. I hope you like this one. This is a quote from Tim Cox. I thought it was very fitting. Reflections of a Passing Day, it's called. Perseverance is going ahead and trying when everything except that inner voice says stop. It's determination. It's faith in yourself. It's the reward at the end of the trip. It's a vision that says, come, you can do it. It may even be a resource to your calling. And Kim, that's you. Your
you.
calling.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And until next time, all of you, keep doing it right, 'cause it matters. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.